podcast is brought to you by Fireside.fm. Podcast hosting by podcasters for podcasters. Now on to the episode.
Today, we thought we would talk about, just a check-in, I guess, and see kind of where we are. We've been working, Baird and I at least, have been working with AI well over a year. Has it been almost 2 years maybe? I don't even know. I'm kind of losing track. But,
Exactly.
I thought it would be good to check in, but also, see where the road bumps are, because things have improved a lot, especially since like when we started this podcast. But we still run into things, either if it's not daily, it's weekly, that are still frustrating, still either going to be ironed out, or maybe it's just like the status quo. I'm not too worried about exploring that part of it, just more about like, let's kind of see where things are. So pre-show, you were talking about something that you've been doing recently that had some of these issues. Let's maybe start there. And then, I think we both have some stories we can share as we go here. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just kind of set it up a little bit, looking around in the world today and how people talk about AI, so much of it is agents are taking over. They're going to do everything. They're going to replace everybody. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I love agentic AI. I think there's a lot of really cool things about it. But, like you mentioned, I was just working on something through my job where it's like, hey, this is a perfect potential use case for like, how could I automate this? So, I was at work thinking about, we have to do image processing essentially of a lot of images for a website we're building. And kind of the goal was like, how can you make the images look better? And this isn't like full on image generation. This is really just like, how can you clean up images, make them look more appealing? And, the awesome thing is, I don't know if you've played with like both Nano Banana and GPT Image 2, like where they are these days compared to where they were even like 6 months ago is amazing. Like it actually does a pretty good job, especially like GPT Image 2. I've really noticed a big jump where like it'll follow your instructions. It'll do a pretty good job of actually like taking existing things and improving them or changing them based off of, what you ask. And so you think, okay, well, this is a perfect place where you can automate the task. You can set up a workflow, you can let it run, and it'll get you what you want. And so I essentially like built out a little bit of like an application where I can do a canvas with some AI attached to it, and I can have it generate stuff. I can have it, do like the aspect ratio of the image so that I can fit, because I'll get into it a little bit in a second here. And then like remove the background because I needed the background removed. And so set this up. I have this whole workflow. It's supposed to work. Run it through, and about every second or third image, all of a sudden, it would do great for like 2 images. The next one, it cuts off like 10 pixels on the side. And like this is images of sandwiches where it's like they need to be the entire sandwich. It needs to like be the image. It just like is putting a layer of like polish on it essentially. And so, that's not a huge deal. Like you can fix it relatively easy. Like I even could go out to ChatGPT and just like have it do it again there, and eventually it would do it. But when you think about automation, like the whole premise of automation is like you don't have to go in and manually do things. It's like you can just set it and let it run. And I think, that's one of the things about AI that's been kind of interesting. And this is a little bit of a tangent on this, but it's just like I still see the automation part as a sticking point just because it isn't deterministic. Like you can't guarantee that it's going to be right every time. And a lot of automation, you have to have that reliability. And so it's one of those things where going through this process, it's been amazing because I'm like, I built this really cool pipeline where it actually is like between just regular technology, but AI. I've built this really cool workflow, and it does everything I want it to do except for kind of the most important part, like that actual AI intervention part where it's jumping in to do something. It's like, it did a great job, except it did something that like the AI couldn't then go back in and easily like fix, because it's hard to explain, like exactly what's wrong. And like, if you give it to, like, one of the things I did too is like, went into ChatGPT, asked it to give me like the prompt of how to do it in the first place. Then I gave it the images to show it like what was happening and said like, how can I fix this? How can I make it consistently actually like keep the whole thing in shot? It gave me, another prompt with some changes to it. I ran that, and all of a sudden the same issue's there, but instead of like fixing anything, it stretched the image of the sandwich in the background as like almost a gradient, trying to fill the space with the sandwich versus like trying to keep it all in shot. And so it's just one of those things where,
Just real quick, what
yeah.
were you? Which one were you using? Was it GPT
So
2?
this was GPT Image 2.
Yeah. Okay.
It's funny because I also tried the Nano Banana with this, and like this is all through the API versus
Yeah.
trying to do it in the chat bot. So like you have a little bit less control. But like for whatever reason, Nano Banana, when I was running it through this way, was like not even close to the real sandwich. And like I had done it in Nano Banana, in actual Gemini itself, and I was
Yeah.
doing better. So I might have had an issue with the actual model I was calling there, but I didn't push too far on it. But it was just kind of one of those reminders because, we talked about it a little bit before too. AI has come so far from where it was, but there's still these friction points like this where it's like, it isn't quite there yet. There's these times where it just like kind of blows up in some really weird ways that are hard to recover from.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it also, it makes me think too, some of it maybe has to do with the way we're wording the prompts and think, all
Yep.
the things that you deal with anyways, but I'm not saying that's what it is, and it probably isn't even that, but it's like, it does make me wonder myself when I run into these issues. I usually will look at it and be like, oh, did I word it weird? Like,
Yeah.
was I not clear enough? But like an example I have, and this is a more recent one that actually worked.
Yep.
It was interesting, but like I wanted a concert ticket made, and I told it like vague things like, hey, or not vague, but like only a few specific things like, here's the venue, this is the date, this is the band.
Yep.
And I think that might have been it. And then it like put together a really cool, and this was Nano Banana, by the way.
Sure. Yep.
It put together a really cool looking, like, it's not like a ticket you'd actually would have got, but like a commemorative type of ticket.
Sure. Yep.
But it was cool. And then the thing that it did that I didn't like, but it wasn't a big deal, but it was just like I didn't tell it, and so it just kind of picked a section and a row and a seat number kind of thing. And once I saw that, I was like, well, actually, if you're going to put that, I might as well put the real one.
Sure.
And my experience in the past, even with Gemini Nano Banana, had been it would give me an image that I thought was a pretty good start, and then I would say, hey, could you just tweak this little thing? And it used to tell me, nope, can't, and I cannot edit the image. Now this time it didn't tell me that, and I gave it like all the exact seat information, and it actually replaced it perfectly, and it turned out great. So that was like the first time I've actually, granted, I don't do a lot of image stuff, but I do sometimes, and that was the first time I actually ever got it to change the image that it just created just slightly. And it's actually reminding me too that like we've had some thumbnails that I've made in Nano Banana as well.
Yep.
And those, that wasn't that long ago. That was like a month or two ago. And I was running into that same issue where like the thumbnail would come out and it would say something I didn't like or whatever. And rather than it being able to just take the one it initially created and tweak it, I would have to basically retype the whole prompt, but then add the things that I didn't like.
Yep.
So in some ways it's gotten better, but in general, like images are very tough. Like,
it is.
They're better from like a starting point now.
Yep.
But like once you're in the mix of like you were saying, like tweak it, that's where it gets really tricky.
Well, yeah. And that's actually kind of a hilarious example on my side is like another example with the whole sandwich thing is just trying to get it to edit an image it already did. Cause like I gave it the instructions, like, and this is one where I went to ChatGPT, took the wrong one, like it did most of it right, the one where it cut off. I gave it the original that showed the whole thing, and I was just like, hey, like go in and just like essentially make sure you show the full sandwich from the new one, like using the old one as a reference. And again, like 8 out of 10 times it actually does that well. But then one time it like doubled half of the sandwich. Like you could literally see where it took like a slice and then put it over here as well. And it's just like it's just so weird how random it can be. And
Yeah.
I mean, I also remember with Nano Banana, like when it first came out and was a thing, and like again, like this wasn't that long ago, but it was long enough ago in AI time that it's like ancient at this point. But I remember it would do things like there was like a limit how many times you could ask for regenerations, and you would
Right.
essentially give it to it, but it wouldn't tell you that. It would like render the image, and then you'd say, "Hey, can you do this now?" And it would come back with the exact same image, and it wouldn't tell you it failed. And then like I looked around one day, and it's like, "Oh yeah, it just stops doing it, but doesn't tell you. Like it just keeps regenerating it." And again, like that's just kind of a funny thing, but it puts in perspective that this stuff is not, you know, concrete. This stuff isn't like consistent and reliable for a lot of things, you know. And I think that's just kind of like looking around at the world today from my perspective, you know, everything is agent this, agent that, like it's going to take over everybody's jobs and all that type of stuff. And I can see some of that. But to the point of everything we've been talking about here, there's all of these relatively, I wouldn't even call them edge cases, because it's not like this is some like weird, you know, logic bug where something happens where it's all the perfect storm and then it goes wrong. Like this is speaking natural language, pretty straightforward that you can even do like 10 times and it fails randomly. And like
Yep.
images are definitely a big one, but I see it on the tech side of stuff too, you know. And I think I've always known this, but I kind of it kind of dawned on me over the last couple weeks here too. Like we're prompting in English, you know, a language that us as humans struggle to communicate with each other sometimes and like understand the actual intent and meaning of what we're saying. And so that communication to the AI, like, sure, I know we're getting more and more to like, let's do an agent loop and the agent figures it out and you just give it kind of that initial context. But I've even seen weird like translation issues when AI talks to AI. I don't know if you've ever
Yep.
noticed that before too. Like if you go back and forth with it, it can struggle with stuff as well. And so it's just a really weird state we're in, even though like things have gotten so much better.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, I do agent stuff, but like I guess I haven't really paid attention to them talking to each other, but I could
Sure.
totally see where that would be a problem.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was trying to think actually there might have been one time when I did run into something weird like that, but oh, actually that this might not be exactly the same thing, but it is another like weird issue I ran into one time and like Claude Cowork for as good as it is, like I forget if I've mentioned it on this podcast or my other podcast, but like I've kind of moved away from Claude Cowork because it felt like it was a little too heavy as a
Yeah.
piece of software for like most of the stuff I wanted to do. I could just do it in Claude,
Sure.
code
Yep.
and in the terminal.
Yeah.
But back to the thing I ran into, I was parsing. What was it? It was like I think it was either I was parsing files. Basically, I had like 10 different things I wanted it to do.
Yep.
I forget specifically what it was. Maybe it'll come to me, but that's kind of the irrelevant part because it was whatever I wanted it to do. I wanted it to do 10 different times,
Yep.
and I told it like, or that's what it was. I remember now. It was roll bar. I might
Oh,
have
sure.
actually talked about this, but I said, okay, go find like spin up subagents to do find 10 different roll bar
Yep.
errors or something like that, and summarize them and all this different stuff. And then it came back and it was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm good. Everything's good. And like there was something weird about it. I forget. Again, it's been a while since this happened, but I just remember it being wrong. And
Sure.
then I pushed back on it, and it was
Yep.
like, oh, well, that's actually because I didn't spin up extra subagents. I just did it all myself, and then just told you I did it.
Yep.
And I'm just like, well, at least you told me, I guess. But like,
Yeah, it
but
always
to
comes
the
clean in the end.
yeah, but I mean, that alone is like another example of you know, it plays into the automation thing, right? Like if
Yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
just let it go and it just did that, then, again, like hallucinations have been around forever
Yeah.
and we still run into them. But like this was another level of it where it's like, Yeah, sure, I'll spin it up. And I think it did spin up like three of the,
Sure. Yep.
or maybe it's five of the 10 or something. It spun up a few, but then it got to some point where it's like, no, no, I can just do it myself and I'll take care of it. It totally didn't.
It's got a hero complex.
Right. Right.
Let my
I don't need those other
underlings
sub
do it.
agents. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so that's a good point too. Just like in about, or I guess another point about automations or make it hard. And like I've found so many times too with like cowork scheduled jobs, and this is
Yep.
a little bit tangential where it's like, is it the AI or is it just the software, the harness? But
Yeah.
like, I will get the cowork scheduled job running, and then a week later or less, like I will go to check the output, and then it's like, oh, it failed the last 5 times.
Yeah.
And did it tell me? Probably, and I just ignored it, whatever. But like either way, it does feel like you have to babysit it a lot more, and that's again a little less about the AI, but it is
Yeah.
it's a AI harness. So
But it's actually a good point too, because more and more we're moving into agent loops are the solution to things. And a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, it was like agent harnesses are the thing that you care about. Now it's agent loop. Like there's always the buzzwords and stuff like that. And I've definitely done agent stuff, but even just today, like I'm working on migrating one website from, Contentful to Sanity CMS. Relatively straightforward. Like, and I've actually done this process before where you tell the AI to essentially like grab the model, like the content type model from Contentful, pull it down, and then do a full. It's automation essentially, but it's nice
yep,
because you don't have to write all of like the transforms. You don't have to write all that type of stuff, and it's relatively straightforward. I ran the whole process. It did everything. Tells me it's all good, but then it's like I had to go through and find a bunch of like little errors where it just, and a lot of it's context, like it can't pay attention to everything in context. So it sees the big stuff. And if you point it to the little stuff, it'll eventually find it. But when you're doing like big chunks of things, it misses pieces, and
yep,
yes, an agent loop might find it eventually, but that's the part that concerns me of just being like, okay, AI, you go off and figure it out. Just keep going and going and going until you figure it out. It's like I've seen too much of it, like when I've let it do it in other contexts where it just goes off the rails. Like you can't
yep,
stop it if it's gone wrong, if it's just constantly running trying to figure stuff out. And it's just one of those, because of the things that we're talking about here, I'm still wary of just being like, AI, do all of it. Like,
yep,
do I say yes way more than I probably should sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. But I always go back in and check things, and I always dig into things and see like what really happened. I found like trying to say no and trying to steer too early leads to a lot of friction that way, because then you're just babysitting stuff. So you got to find that middle ground. And I just haven't seen enough where I'm like, agent loops are the solution. Like I think
yep,
there are times where it might be, and I think it's definitely something where it can be interesting, but I just think that we're just so concerned about like that productivity and like, you got the whole token maxing stuff going on right now where it's just like, how many tokens can I burn? Which is great for, AI labs who are selling you the model and want to make money. Like, of course, they're going to want you to run it constantly. But
yep,
I found that like I have like significantly increased my productivity, still playing a very big role in what actually happens. Like the AI does a lot of the work, but I'm still like very very much into what's actually happening. Otherwise, it can go wrong really quickly.
yeah. And that's about where I'm at too. It's like I don't even have a desire yet to have it fully automated anyways,
Yeah,
because I don't trust it, and because of a lot of the things we've been talking about, but also because I am already way more productive by having it
yeah,
do the tedious things at a minimum, let
yep,
alone like writing code.
for
It's
sure.
like there's so many of the command center things that I have going on that save me time there.
Yep,
And then, like I've got several different things now where it's like I'm using AI to write some code that basically interacts with an API. And
Sure.
then once that code's written, I don't really need the AI anymore.
Yep.
Sometimes I will still have AI just like run the same script,
For sure.
and mostly I do that so that it can be in the loop and know like what the
Yeah.
output is if there is an issue.
Yep.
But at that point, it gets around the deterministic problem because I've already
Yep.
written a script that doesn't need AI, but like AI is
Yep.
kind of helping me.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
I'm still not letting it completely do it on its own. And but I'm also like way more productive. So like,
Yeah. No, and I found that too. Like even just the image stuff I was talking about, like a lot of the stuff I built, I actually like built software to help with the automation, and it was like
yep,
a UI and everything. And in the past, I wouldn't have done it because it would have taken, a week just to build the software piece, and it took me like 2 hours, And a lot of
right,
that 2 hours was like I would build something, I would actually test it and try to go through the process. I'd find something that didn't work, and then I'd extend it, or I would, be like, oh, what if I could do this feature on top of it, And that's actually a part that I really enjoy personally is like the iteration on things, instead of it just
yep,
being like, okay, AI, you go iterate and finish it. I like having that involvement of like truly crafting something. I just don't have to write every line of code to get there, which has changed things for the better for me personally.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I agree with that too. But it's funny though because I was listening to a different podcast, Remote Ruby,
Sure,
like just this past week, or it was this week, I guess. And those guys are still, I think they're using AI stuff, but like
sure.
they're still having discussions around like, controller level issues or like Rails issues. And I did kind of find myself being like, I kind of miss that stuff a little bit. Like it's awesome to be able to have the code completely written by the
Yep,
AI.
yep.
There was like something about it where I was just kind of like, yeah, but like if I let the AI do all of it, then I'm not gonna be digging in and like figuring that stuff
Yeah.
out. And it's like both good and bad.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. No, and I think that's from my perspective. I mean, this is just AI in general, but it gets to your point. It's like if the AI does everything, it's like what's even the point, like it
mhm.
just it loses, and like that's just a personal thing. Like I get the point is to make money and to build businesses, and like yeah, that's awesome, but I enjoy the process, like for me it is, and you touched on it too. It's like how do you get rid of the boring stuff and focus on the high value and the fun stuff where you can truly like make your vision come to life
Yep.
without needing like, and I think I've touched on this before, like reducing the activation energy has been one of the biggest things of using AI for me. Is just like in the past it was like, okay, I want to do this, but I've got to install all the boilerplate, I've got to set up the packages, I've got to, hook up the database, do all the crud stuff, and like now that's like 15 minutes worth of work. It's like, okay, go in, do all this stuff. You've got a project up and running, and then you can go from there. And
Yep.
like that's really still the most exciting. And like this isn't anything new, obviously. Like this, we've been doing this for, like you say, probably 2 years at this point. But it's still the most exciting part for me is that getting things out that I want that are like in my head that I know I wouldn't build if I didn't have the AI. It, like enabling that has just been such a huge improvement in how I've been able to work over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I totally agree. Um, and this feels like maybe a good place to kind of start wrapping up, I guess,
Yep.
for me, kind of in summary, and then I'll pass it back to you. But like, I feel like everything you just said makes sense. I think overall we're in an awesome place. I still love using it. I constantly have to remind myself that like we are in what the like 1% or less of people that are using it in this way.
Yep,
And
for sure.
so, anybody else that isn't using it probably wouldn't run into these. I mean, they would certainly run into these things eventually, but like they're going to have like a lower bar, right? And so we're pushing things. And so it's cool to be in the position we're in where we are running into some of these barriers, but like kind of know how to navigate them, right? So overall, I think it's great um, to have it, and I think, um, yeah, I think I can kind of just leave it there. I'll hand it back over to you to kind of summarize where you're at.
No, I agree. I think I've never been a person who's liked hype. And so I always have this like dichotomy of when things get too hyped up, it almost like makes me not want to do it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, and like this is going back, and this is a bit of a tangent, but it makes sense. Like just a couple years ago when we were in the metaverse blockchain era, I never got on board because I never saw the value, and there's all the hype. Where with AI, like there's the hype, but I still see the value, so I've stuck with it and really like it has definitely improved things.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm still excited about it, but it's been an interesting experience of like where are those roadblocks? You know, it's something that I like to be real about it and not just think like, oh, it's going to be perfect, but where are those pitfalls so you know how to get around them.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Well, since you've got kids trying to break that door down on you, it's
Yep.
definitely a good time to wrap up. I'll just add that, one thing that I've been thinking about, or I guess we've been thinking about, we've talked about a little bit, haven't really made it official, but I'll just kind of throw it out there. Like, where we're at does feel like we could bring our knowledge to other people. So if anybody out there is looking for help, some consulting, we are considering that as an option to help people. Um, but also we're very busy with other things, so it's kind of like, let's see if there's some demand. So I just want to throw it out there as we're kind of checking in, like that is something we both are interested in helping people with. Feel free to reach out. You can check in the show notes. We'll have a link to our website and other places you can contact us. Yeah. And also, if you're liking what we're putting out here, give us 5-star ratings, give us thumbs up on YouTube, 5-star rating, I guess, in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.